Hi friends, and welcome back to my creative space. Today's guest is Ty van Herweg. He's a producer and DJ in the Pacific Northwest and is one of the best when it comes to bass house and dark techno. He's known by his stage name Minør and is equipped with grit and low frequency growls on the deck and behind the computer. He's a co-founder of Sub 49 Collectives and Sub 49 Records, and his newest single Opium drops January 31st. You can catch Minør playing live at the next Waves event, Delirium, where he'll be joined with other local legends in Seattle on February 8th at Beyond Space. You can also catch Minør opening for Matroda at Q Nightclub in Seattle on February 13th. And without further ado, here's Minør. So breaking news, you quit your day job.
Yes, I did. Yep, officially done with the day job. I'm a free man. I was working at Convoy, which is a trucking startup, for the last year and a half. Had been working in tech for 2.5 years and finally decided to take the leap. It feels really good and back to being my own boss again, and going to be doing some rideshare on the side as a side hustle. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun and really excited.
And I imagine, how do you feel about this whole process? I feel like you're in a similar boat to me. I got let go, and you voluntarily let yourself go. So I think we can kind of share that experience together. But I know for me, it was like a mixture of emotions of like being pretty afraid, but also just really excited. And like, I'm curious how you feel about it.
You know, what's interesting is, when I was first thinking about taking the leap a few months ago, there was like a slight bit of fear and self-doubt involved. But as of late, I think over the last 2 months, I, to be honest, don't really feel any fear. And I just think I have a really clear vision of where I want to go. I've had certain things line up that were a bit serendipitous that have made the financial side a little easier. So yeah, overall I feel really good about it, and I trust in my abilities. I've hustled through a lot of my life, so everything I've done up until this point, I think, has prepared me to make this move.
I mean, that's awesome. I feel like that's every sort of artist's dream, to just say and just like go for it. So I'd imagine it feels really good to be able to be in that position now.
Well, definitely. And it's one of those things too, where ever since when I was a little kid, I had this dream of being a rock star, like specifically, and that dream has always stuck with me. And I obviously didn't know what DJs were when I was a little kid, but looking back, it's nice to keep this dream alive. And I really feel good about the music I'm making. I feel good about what we're doing as a collective and the opportunities we have to throw shows going forward and do collaborations. So, I mean, yeah, I'm very fortunate. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better situation to take this leap.
Let's talk more about young Ty. So when you were growing up, you mentioned that you wanted to be a rock star, and you learned to play the piano too, although from what I understand you were rather more on the creative side and wanted to just make your own stuff versus reading sheet music or
yeah
something like that.
Well, and so I got started on piano lessons, and I'm glad that my parents forced me into that. But yeah, you're right, like anything involving like memorizing sheet music or reading sheet music, I just wasn't a big fan of. So I would write. I started writing music technically, I think, when I want to say 7 or 8, just really simple melodies and such. But I always enjoyed that so much more, and any chance I had to like perform any songs I wrote in front of my class, like in music class or anything like that, I would jump at the opportunity. But I started learning guitar when I was 11, and what was so great is my teacher at the time was also an expert on music theory. And learning music theory on the guitar to me is so much more straightforward than learning on a piano. So he really laid it out for me and showed me like all-encompassing patterns and how they all connected. And for me, I picked it up fairly quickly because I have more of a mathematical brain than anything. So once I learned music theory and started really picking up guitar, I just started writing all sorts of music, and yeah, that's kind of what put me in the position I'm in today of being able to write music and understand music theory pretty quickly.
I feel like it definitely shows because there's like this extra dimension, I think, to your music. If we can talk about more about your music. First of all, you have a very, like, I'm not sure how to describe it. It's very dark. It's very melodic. That's generally how I would describe it. But it's very unique too. And I think like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's Minør. You know?
Well, thank you. I think the greatest compliment a producer can get is someone being able to identify your music just by listening to the elements, and it's been an interesting journey. I've always written stuff in minor keys. I mean, that's where the name comes from, and this project is in a way like taken from various influences I have in electronic music, but also I feel like it borrows a lot from grunge and rock that I listened to growing up, and yeah, I mean that's why anything from a Korn remix to a Danny Brown bootleg I'm currently working on to stuff that's more melancholy or on the sad side. I mean, I think that's kind of where my creative range is on that project. So yeah, it's fun, and I'm glad you enjoy it. It's always my goal is at the end of the day, if it doesn't get you dancing, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah, that's that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fun fact, I think the first time I've ever heard you live was at APOG. And for those who don't know, APOG is a music festival held up in Washington, up in Wenatchee. So very north Washington. Good friends of ours that throw this huge festival. They're Burning Man friends, so they obviously had the whole thing on lockdown. But yeah, I remember your set because it was just one of the more unique ones, and like it went like super dark. Like it was melodically dark, but also like it had this incredible energy, I think, that kept people going. And so.
Oh, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, that set in particular was a lot of fun. When I was asked to play, I was told, yeah, you're going to be, after Frida and before Alan O. And so knowing that I had to create this bridge between tech house and breaks, it got me really excited because, left to my own devices, I'll just bang out a bunch of dark bass house tracks. So being challenged to curate a journey that created a bridge between those two sets was a lot of fun. Starting out with some of my favorite tech house tracks of all time, and then slowly but surely kind of getting into the darker side of tech house, bass house, and then finishing off with some really awesome breaks. It was that was probably one of the most fun sets I've ever had the pleasure of playing.
Yeah. And I think now that you talk about it, and now that I'm like remembering, and I did listen to it again, and I was like, I wonder why it was so memorable. And you explained it perfectly, because I guess like I didn't, like, as a listener, I don't think about these things. Transitioning from like I guess one artist to another, and actually, can you talk about more about that? I guess because
Sure.
From someone who I guess is a photographer and just enjoys being parts of these DJ shows or clubs or sets. Like I don't really think about these things, but like I guess transitioning is important for you guys, right?
Yeah. Well, and so for me, like I said, so music is very much an art for me, but I also, I look at it from a very mathematical and scientific standpoint, and so with my approach to DJing, it's very much in that vein. I'm very much a proponent of harmonic mixing, which means mixing keys of tracks that are connected by the fifth. What that essentially ensures is that whenever you're mixing tracks together, they harmonically sound good together and that they're in key. So that's one element that I always take into account when trying to like plan out how I'm going to get from point A to point B. Another thing I kind of look at is the energy of a track. You know, there's certain tracks that if you place them correctly, or if you like set them up with the right track, they just pop off a lot better than they do just like in a vacuum. Or there's, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 tracks that if you layer them together just create something entirely different that is really drives energy. So with that APOC set in particular, it was nice because there are some go-to tracks that I've been playing out for a really long time that are dark but kind of have more of a tech house feel. So as far as like building a bridge between like tech house and then being able to get into some more my dark bass house stuff, those are some tracks I try to shoot for, and yeah, I feel like it came across well, and I had a hell of a lot of fun playing it. So, but yes, those are some of my approaches, I guess you could say. Yeah, I always try to be very methodical and selective with how I approach DJ sets.
There's a lot of preparation. It sounds.
Yep.
Can you kind of talk to me about like what it takes to kind of prepare for a set, and then also, you know, how do you balance between preparing as a DJ versus like you as a producer? Like, how do those go hand in hand? What takes more time?
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good question. Yeah, you know, the DJ producer thing, it can be hard to juggle because I mean, if it were up to me, I would just be in the studio all day every day. That's my happy place, just working on music. I don't think I could ever get sick of working on music, and that's why I've stuck with it after so many years of banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how to, you know, properly sidechain compress something or whatnot. But you know, with producing, I don't know if I would say there's as much preparation that so much as there is just like this free flowing creative process and process of fine tuning things, which, you know, can be a bit technical. But as far as like prepping for DJ sets, I mean, I feel like I constantly am, and I'm constantly thinking about the tracks I produce for each project. I think about them in a much larger picture. So, you know, sometimes if I select the key of a track, it's because, you know, I don't have a track that's in this key, and if I'm gonna, you know, fit it into a set of like, say, all originals, I wanna have a track in this key that has this certain energy so I can feed into this track much better. And I've especially been recently inspired by that method by this duo that goes by the name Church. They're from Canada. Their sets are like world renowned, and it's mostly made up of original tracks, and they think about every track they produce in the context of these sets. So in that way, I feel like I'm constantly preparing, and then whenever I get hit up for a major gig that I get really excited about, I just daydream about like, okay, what tracks am I going to start out with? Like, what would make sense to incorporate at certain parts? You know, I daydream about these sets and start to piece together what tracks might go well together just in my head, like constantly daydreaming about that. And then usually a week or two before, I'll start to like, you know, kind of piece together like, okay, cool, like I think I have a general idea of where I want to take this. Yeah. Obviously, you know, I always leave room to pivot and change direction if need be, but I don't know, sometimes you can also do that and then get left astray. So I always like to go in with a pretty clear plan if I'm playing, say, at a Q nightclub or playing on any system where little details can be heard really clearly.
Yeah, for sure. I'd imagine it's this big game of like Tetris in terms of like, you know, you've got a set of 100 songs and always constantly trying to fiddle like around with how does the song mesh with this? What happens if you mix this track with this? How do I transition from this to this? Like,
oh, definitely. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. And I think with dark music especially, it's important to not go like full dark as they, and I know it probably sounds kind of funny, but you want to have moments where you play a track that's maybe more like party centric or, more of a club vibe. I feel like there's, in crafting a good mix, you gotta like have these fluctuations, these calls and responses, tension and release. So yeah, it's for me, like, I mean, every DJ is different. I always approach it from a very methodical standpoint, and after listening to countless sets over the years and paying really close attention to how other DJs approach, like, say, a direct support set or an opening set, whatever it might be, I just think very, very, very critically of the approach I'm taking.
Yeah. So once and for all, to silence people who think that DJ is just press play.
I mean, there's some out there that do, and they get paid a lot of money to do so. But yeah, I mean, talk to any DJ, at least in the local Seattle scene, or just in the underground scene at large. And yeah, I mean, some DJs are so experienced that they just have everything in their back pocket as is. They have their go-tos, they have their ways of reading the crowd. For me, at this stage of my development, like, I like to prep as much as I possibly can, but I'm sure someday there'll be a moment where it just becomes autopilot, and it already feels like that when I do back-to-backs with my friends, because I just go into that and do it completely off the cuff. But that's my approach, at least for now.
Gotcha. I think it does show, and just to give a shout out to the Seattle community, or the Seattle nightlife community, I think you guys really have done and still do a really good job of like stepping things up, and like I'm not sure if it's competitive, but I definitely feel like everybody is bringing their like A game to the stage, and I think it really does show.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, this, what's great about the scene is I feel it's a lot more collaborative than it is competitive. I feel like most of the time, if there is competition, people are competing with themselves, and their really high expectation that they set for themselves and trying to meet that. I know it's definitely the case with me. I think it could be easy for some DJs that are just getting into the scene to like compare themselves to others, but I don't know. I mean, most of the established DJs I know will just absolutely kill it every time. They're just comfortable with who they are. They're comfortable with their approach, and they just do their best to deliver every time. And I think that says a lot about those DJs. And yeah, so for me, I think it's a lot more collaborative than competitive, and probably for the better. Because competition is good, but we all survive off collaborating with each other and, making sure that we raise each other up and support each other as much as we can.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put it, actually. And I know, like, whenever I hop on Facebook, it's always just like you guys gassing each other up and just being like thumbs up, hearts, like commenting on everything.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we gotta gas each other up, it's not a easy life, it's a lot of high expectations that we put upon ourselves, a lot of pressure to pump out tracks, a lot of pressure to deliver the absolute best performance we can every time we play. So if we're not gassing each other up, I mean, we're just making it harder on ourselves. And I know at least for myself, mental health can take quite a hit with this lifestyle and in this industry, and so I think we all have an obligation to support each other and protect each other as much as we can. Because without that, we lose sight of what's important, and that's the music and making sure this community keeps going for decades to come.
Yeah. Can we stay on this topic a little more? Because I think that's really important. I mean, one, we did a photo shoot together, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. You had, I'll throw up a picture too, but you had like a bunch of words that were things that people called you before, and I'll try to put a link down to it from a podcast too. But also, we've also had conversations where music seems to be sort of like your outlet, your therapy. Like, can you maybe talk about more on that?
Certainly, yeah. Music's definitely my therapy. I don't know if I would still be here without music, to be honest. Even from a young age, I just don't know if I was born with the right brain chemistry. I had like sleep issues when I was a kid, and eventually those things would evolve into anxiety, depression, alcoholism, etc. And music was just, it always just kind of made things feel right in my brain. It's the only way I can really explain it. And specifically like emotional, like hard, heavy music. Like, I feel like the intensity and emotion that comes from music is what makes me feel like it's okay to feel what I feel, and have the struggles I have, So with my music, I mean, I don't think it's any surprise. Like, I'm kind of an open book when it comes to my music. A lot of that I keep locked in a sort of emotional vault when I'm out and about and just talking to people casually, but my music tells a story, and it's my story, and I do that because I know there's other people out there that struggle. They've been fighting a hard battle their whole life, and they've seen some of their idols fall victim to some of these diseases and mental health challenges. I know I have. Growing up, I idolized people like Lane Staley and Chris Cornell, who are no longer with us. So, I feel like if I can at least get that therapy through music and express how I truly feel on the inside, and it can be something relatable, and that people can just like get all their angst or sadness or whatever out to, then that's probably my ultimate goal. And if I'm able to help others heal, then in turn, I hope that I can heal as well.
Yeah, I think that's so important, and it's so I'm getting goosebumps. Like it's awesome. Like, it's refreshing to hear, I think, and I think the goal isn't necessarily to get rid of what we feel, but to find a healthy way to channel it. And I think like you've done that so much with your music.
I try. It's the type of thing where if I am not able to express what I'm feeling, then it just stays inside my head and stays inside my heart and festers and turns into it turns me into someone I don't want to be. So if I'm able to take any negative emotion or feeling that I have and channel it through music, it certainly takes a load off my plate, and it doesn't make things necessarily easier, but it helps me cope, and given where I'm at in life, the fact that I have a platform and the tools I need to properly express myself, I'm incredibly grateful for. Yeah. Because, if I didn't have those things, I don't know if I would be in as good of a spot as I am now.
Yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm thankful as hell.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's good to hear. And it's, talking with different artists, like that's a common thread that I've been seeing too, whether it's with visual art or photography or video or music, like being able to express how we feel, sometimes with words, sometimes with not sometimes without words, but just being able to express and let go of like what's inside is helpful.
Definitely. And I'm always going to be grateful for that, and that's why recently I've been really trying to protect my hearing, because I think my greatest fear is not going blind, it's going deaf. Music is something I want to be a part of my life for as long as I live, and you know, hoping that I can, you know, continue making music until until it's my time to go, because that's really all I want to do with my life.
Speaking of juggling, not only do you have your own DJ producer persona, which is Minør, and then your recent project which is Mode, but you're also the co-founder of Sub 49 Collectives and also Sub 49 Records. So can you talk to me more about what it's like to juggle yourself as a musician and a record label owner, and sort of like what the difference is between the two, and how do you sort of manage all that?
Well, it's a good question, and you know, I don't know, throughout my life I've always had to kind of put on many different hats at different points, especially entrepreneurially. But you know, the nice thing about the label and the collective is it feels like we are a support system for each other, and we always have an incentive to put whatever effort we have into the collective, because we all benefit as individuals. You know, the whole reason that we started Sub 49 in the first place actually had nothing to do with starting a label, and had everything to do with the kind of strange period of time where Foundation closed down, and there were some incredibly talented DJs that were all of a sudden out of work that played to this style that some others that I knew really messed with. And so we came together to kind of create this collective as a means to have a platform where we can keep this style of house music alive and maybe even push it further. And that's also where the idea for starting a label came out, because we were kind of thinking, well, if we're going to do this, why don't we do it big? So it's kind of interesting because, the origin story kind of started with us being like, well, you know, we have an opportunity to do something pretty cool together, because we all have this shared enthusiasm for this house music, and well, let's start a label too. And it's been cool to see where Sub 49 is now, because I think we really are on the verge of making big things happen, and especially in the next 5 years, where, you know, we will always have a presence here in Seattle, but potentially being able to expand our reach far beyond. And it's a really exciting prospect, I think, for all of us, because, you know, it's this whole growth of Sub 49 has helped all of us grow exponentially as individual artists too. So as far as juggling that, I mean, it's something I'm pretty used to. Like, I don't really approach every day in a very rigid manner. I just do exactly that, juggle, and it keeps me on my toes, keeps me busy, keeps me occupied, and it's all fun. You know, I've always been a hustler and entrepreneur my whole life, and you know, the cool thing about us being a collective is it's very egalitarian. Like, you know, we all share everything equally, and it's a cool model because we're always looking out for each other, and we're always looking out for what's best for the interests of Sub 49. So it makes it a lot of fun, and at the end of the day, everyone's been really awesome to work with. We're slowly but surely kind of growing as a family, and bringing in people that are incredible and gonna help us on the street team side of things. And we only can go upward and onward from here, and keep the momentum going. So we still have a lot of logistical work we're pounding through right now to set ourselves up for the goals we want to accomplish in 2020, and beyond. But yeah, I mean, I'm just so ecstatic with where we're at, and I'll always be happy to juggle all these various things, because it's all fun, every single aspect of it.
Yeah, that's, as a creative entrepreneur as well, like, that's the thing that you want to hear, which is like, it's fun and you're happy doing it.
Oh yeah,
you wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, so. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I've kind of, I mean, I've accepted the fact that like the life that has been advertised to me and conditioned on me, like growing up, of, oh, you should make a lot of money and put it a lot into retirement, you know, buy a house, start a family. I've accepted that not only is that not really the lifestyle for me, but, you know, I'd so much rather pursue music with everything I have and just scrape and fight tooth and nail to get to where I want to be in music, and just push all the other stuff to the side, because that's what matters most to me. And I've accepted the fact that it's going to be a non-conventional lifestyle, and maybe there will be times where, you know, I have a hard time like being understood or being able to relate, but this is really all I can see myself doing, and it feels natural living this lifestyle.
Yeah. And for me, really, you know, one, I think we're both very young. So, you know, haven't cracked 30 yet. And, you know, I think, man, like, we should just go for it, sink or swim, you know, kind of thing. And I think that's one thing that I've appreciated in talking with you and interacting with you more, is that you just had that mentality that, like, I'm just going to go for it. If I die, I die. But you know what? At least I did it, you know, at least. And I can say for me too, like, you know, looking back, if I ever turn 90 one day, I will look back and say, even if it didn't work out, I tried it.
Well, and Alan, that's why I appreciate talking to you about these things, because I view it very much in the same lens. I mean, I don't even know what life will be like at the age of retirement.
Yeah.
You know, which is like what's so pressed on us is, you know, oh, you need to save for retirement, you need to do this, you need to do that. The way I kind of look at it is like, if I love what I do and I am putting everything I have into what I do, the rest will take care of itself. Because either I'll be so happy doing that I'll just do that until I die and not need retirement, or, you know, there'll be just magical things that happen along the way where maybe I can get financial security. It's something that I think I will come with time, so long as I pour everything I have into my passion and my craft. And it sounds like, yeah, we're both gonna be able to look back one day and know that, you know what, like, we gave this life our best absolute shot, and I think it's gotta speak for something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Can I also touch on the subject, which is a characteristic I really admire out of you, which is like your leadership and your ability to think ahead. I think with the whole Sub 49 collective and now the Sub 49 records, it's, at least from my perspective, it's sort of outgrown everybody into becoming its own entity. And I think like, when I see Sub 49 on like the Yuri's night that's coming up, and I'm like, oh shit, like they're up, you know, like, or just the fact that I think, you know, your whole group like watches out for each other. That's like next level sort of leadership in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's the type of thing where I'm definitely very far from being the leader I want to be, and I'm constantly thinking through how I can improve in that regard. Especially, you know, it's a tough industry because more often than not, as much as we'd like to keep our personal life and business separate, they can become intermingled very quickly. So it's still something I think about a lot. I think about, you know, how can I make better decisions? How can I put myself in a position where I can be the best leader and support system that I can be for my friends and my colleagues. But, you know, it's the type of thing where, because we are a collective, we've all gone through various things in the last year where, you know, we struggled to maintain all these balls we're juggling. And without fail, anytime like someone needs to step up and just do something, people do. And that's what's so great about the way we operate is, you know, we don't ever let anything drop or fall because someone's not in a position to deliver that day. And we're all very understanding and empathetic of that. So I think that's what's so cool about it. we are all understanding that like none of us are perfect, none of us will ever be perfect, but we try our best to understand each other and be there for each other when needed. And that's, I think all of us are always thinking about how we can continue to improve, whether it's in our personal life, as business partners, as DJs, as producers, just overall as people in general. So, you know, it's nice. It's nice to be in a group where that's always the MO, and you know, we're here for the long run. So, you know, if we're gonna be here for the long run, we have to improve by necessity. So,
well, I feel like that is next level leadership thinking, because I think you could have gone on your own and said like, I'm just gonna do Minør, just gonna be like the best me kind of thing. You eloquently put it, which is no one's perfect. Everybody's got like their own strengths and weaknesses. And I think by having a collective, you guys cover each other, and you're looking at each other and saying like, well, my win's your win, your win's my win. Let's all try to like rise together.
Yep. Well, I think there's power in numbers for sure. You know, I think, and you know, it can be such a lonely road just doing the whole solo thing. So why not just make it a party? You know, that's what's so fun about all this is anytime we have a success like this, it just makes it more fun. You know, the grander the scale and the more complex the challenges are that we go up against, the more fun it is to figure it out. So yeah, I mean, there's so much that so many people in the world have to offer, and it's been cool operating the label too, because, you know, we meet really awesome, talented producers from all over the world of various ages, and knowing that we're now a piece of that puzzle of trying to help expose these artists and put them in a position where they can achieve their dreams as well. That's equally as fulfilling as working on my own stuff. You know, so yeah, I think if any other mentality in the music industry, like, sure, maybe your sheer talent can get you far, but you know, ultimately the support you provide to others, the relationships you build, and who you are as a person is what's going to take you farther, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And I think this whole thing is about creative entrepreneurship, and just kind of hearing where you guys came from, where you're bringing it now, I think is really inspiring. And I think just even talking to you now, like, I'm learning a lot and thinking about like, what does it take to like build a team and like, you know, have people network, which you know, the photography side like of it, you know, we have that similar vibe too, where we send each other gigs, and like, you know, if we can't make something, we like make sure we have people to, you know, catch us and stuff like that. So,
well, that's amazing. Yeah, I think, oh gosh, yeah, that's a mentality that's so essential, and that's what's inspiring to me too, hearing that. Like, I think if you're not like constantly thinking about how you can provide value to others, then you're approaching it the wrong way. You know, we all have a lot to offer, and we have excessive amounts of talent and intellect and love. So, you know, there's plenty to give around to everyone. If you're keeping that all to yourself, that's great and all, but you're missing out on an opportunity to bring a lot of other people up, and also create avenues where people can help lift you up too.
Just curious, do you believe in anything or like anyone, or do you have like a specific sort of like mantra? Like, I'm curious to know like your like purpose and why, if you're okay with
of course. Yeah, I guess I still don't really know what I believe per se. I mean, and I don't even know how to classify myself. I think classifications are typically misleading anyways. But if I had to say what I'd probably be an optimistic nihilist. You know, like I kind of
just like your music.
Yeah, you know, I operate under the assumption that nothing truly matters, and I find that beautiful, because if it is in fact the case that nothing truly matters, then I can create meaning for my own life and create meaning in how I interact with others. So yeah, so that's kind of how I operate, and I'm definitely a spiritual person. I've had too many moments happen in my life that were where I was just incredibly lucky, or I just dodged a bullet by a few hairs, and moments like that have kind of assured me there is some greater thing going on. I don't know what it is, nor is it something I think too heavily on. But yeah, there's some bigger magical thing at play, and I think it's the reason why, you know, every person we meet in life, like, is part of this grander scheme, you know, and that's also what kind of keeps me humbled, is we're all part of this bigger, larger plan or scheme that's going on, and, you know, we I think all have a duty to kind of take it upon ourselves to treat everyone as best as we possibly can. Because, you know, life is so short, and it's so confusing and so complicated and absurd. So, you know, we got to take care of each other and all get through this thing in one piece. Yeah. You know? So I don't know. I could probably ramble on and on about various things I think about in that regard, but that's, I guess, my approach to life and my mantra.
Okay. Yeah. Originally, I had thought of a title for this podcast. It was going to be called Art, Science, and Spirituality. And if you take the first 3 letters of each, it's
Oh, nice.
I decided
that's pretty solid.
I might have to start another podcast, which is basically that. I did back out because I'm not too familiar with sciences, and I talked to a friend about it. So I wanted to just have this as my podcast. But I am always curious about what people believe, and I think, you know, what people say and do really reflects, like, their beliefs, and I think, like, that's always something that I'm curious about. So
for sure, yeah. You know, a very spiritual experience for me was when I finally quit drinking for good, and that was about 6.5 years ago. And
you haven't touched alcohol since then?
Yeah.
Wow. Even though you work in a space known for alcohol.
I mean, you know, eventually you learn how to have fun sober, and then just, you know, it gets easier. It's, you know, still a day-to-day thing. I mean, if I can't stay sober today, then the last 6.5 years don't mean a thing, you know? So I try always telling myself that. But when I first quit drinking, I kind of came to terms with, like, a lot of pain I'd felt in life and a lot of trauma that I was otherwise just suppressing. And every time I came to terms with that and either healed from it or felt myself letting go of some of that anger or pain or whatever it might have been, it felt like this, like, spiritual opening, like as if I kind of felt myself opening up, you know. And so that's where I think a lot of my spirituality comes from, is just that process of getting away from alcohol, and also just, I don't know, like, finally feeling like I have grips on everything I'm doing in life.
Yeah. I'm curious, if you don't mind talking about this. Was it suddenly one day just waking up and being like, just never going to touch it again? Or was it like a process?
It was, I mean, so I always knew I had an issue with drinking. And I mean, I grew up watching my parents drink quite a bit. And I was such a logical child that I would see them get drunk, and I just couldn't compute it. I was like, why would anyone want to drink something that would make them stupid? I just could not grasp it or understand it. You know, like, I thought, well, you should always be mentally sharp, you should always be learning more. And, you know, as a kid, like, I just was, I guess, much more of an idealist, or didn't have nearly the number of issues that I was going to have eventually in life. But it was just weird, like, you know, from the first moment I drank, it was like a key going into a lock. It was like, oh, now I understand. And yeah, that's where the issue started. I think I was like 15 when I drank for the first time, and I knew very early on I was going to have issues with it. And, you know, but when I got to college, that's where it got especially tough because I started blacking out all the time. Even though I would have to wake up at 4:30 every Saturday morning to go lead like a volunteer troop to go cook hot breakfast at a halfway house, I would still black out, and somehow I'd wake up in my bed at 4:30, not know how the hell I got there, not know who I'd talked to that night or where I was or what parties I was at or what I drank. I would just have to wake up and go. So I tried quitting like 6 different times, but I mean, a lot of half-assed attempts. One time I convinced myself that white wine wasn't real alcohol, so I would just like kill an entire giant bottle of white wine and
Still has alcohol.
yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. I don't know how the hell I convinced myself of that. I guess that's part of what alcoholism is, but yeah, one day I woke up. I was 2 hours late for work. I looked to the side of my bed. There was a half-drinking bottle of Old English I had no recollection of opening at all. And I was in a very comfortable bed, but that was rock bottom for me. I was spiritually done. And I was desperate. I finally came to terms with the fact that I could not do it on my own and that I was helpless. So that's the thing about rock bottom. It's not so much a physical place, but a spiritual one. And for everyone, it's different. Some people can have like 5 DUIs, or I mean, some people will drive drunk and kill somebody and still not hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that you arrive at spiritually. And it was at that point in time when, for the 6th and final time, I quit, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was 20 years old at the time. I wasn't even legal drinking age yet.
Amazing. Wow.
Yep. It's just one of those things, man. You know, life is crazy. And I don't know. Definitely glad that happened when it did, and I don't regret anything that's happened in my life. I would never take anything back. And I am where I am today because of that critical moment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing to hear. It's like you knew at that moment, like you knew inside like your soul that like this was it, like you're done.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't even my decision to make. It just I was literally at wit's end. You know, and I started out in AA. I didn't stick with it because it didn't really mesh with the life I wanted to live per se. But for anyone that out there who is interested in quitting or, you know, needs help, AA is like the best possible thing you can do. And so I just reading the big book, I would read about different alcoholic stories, and that was always a theme, is like there's this like this spiritual feeling inside when you finally, like, you're not the one making the decision is being made for you, that okay, you're quitting now. It was completely out of my hands. I mean, I was helpless. I was just an absolute wreck. And if I had continued down that path, I don't even know. I don't know if I would still be here. You know, the trajectory was pretty severe. So yeah, I'm lucky. Yeah, I live a charmed life, and you know, challenges haven't ceased. Still get curveballs all the time, it feels like, but I'm very happy with where I am, looking at the big picture.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think like your self-awareness too, just like knowing that like this is what you need to do, and I think it reflects in just every part of your life, whether it's like music or bringing the collective or playing a show. It's like, this is what I gotta do, this is what I need to know, like how to prepare, and like then you just kind of execute and go for it.
Well, thanks. I mean, I like to think I'm self-aware. I solicit a lot of feedback, you know, whether it's with my music or just with my demeanor or how I'm handling things, because I'm never entirely sure if I'm making the best decisions or the right decisions, but I think honesty is important, you know. I mean, if we're not able to be honest with ourselves, then it's really hard to be honest to others. You know, so I try being honest with myself and keeping tabs on certain things and knowing like, okay, you know, I'm not making this best decision, but that's okay. I'm recognizing it. And if I know if I truly want to make different or better decisions, I can. So that's kind of a place where I'm in now. I think every time we flip to a new year, I'm always thinking about that and trying to like recalibrate my entire life and try to put myself in a better spot and a healthier spot. Because, you know, if I'm not doing that, then, you know, how can others trust me to be looking out for their best interests too, you know? So that's kind of the approach I take. I don't know if it's the best approach. It's just the approach I know best. You know?
It's clearly working though.
Yeah, I mean,
like seeing the results, and I think,
well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. You know? Unless it's a broken beat, then that's sick. But
that's awesome. Well, I guess to wrap things up, do you want to give a shout out to all the events you're doing?
Oh, sure. So got some exciting shows coming up. One that hasn't been announced yet, but really excited for the announcement. So I'm just going to vaguely put that out there. Okay. But two that I'm really incredibly excited about is Waves Delirium. That's going to be February 8th. And incredibly excited for that show. Anytime I get the opportunity to play a wave show, I just get so excited. The production value, just the sheer talent on those lineups, the ability to go in and express yourself fully as an artist, I think is also really exciting. So I'm really excited for that one. Not only that, the Delirium theme, I'm just excited to see what the production team does with that theme. And there's also like some other groups that are coming in and doing some installations and stuff. So that's gonna be top notch. Really excited for that. Worth every single penny, especially given how grassroots Waves is and how much work we all put into that. So yeah, definitely get your tickets for that if you're able to. And then really excited to be playing at Q on February 13th. Matroda's coming back to town. He, to me, is like one of the Beethoven or Mozarts of our time in terms of electronic music. There are very few producers I listen to that just absolutely wow me the way his music does. So yeah, very fortunate to be in the direct support slot for that, playing with Grayson and Edgar, who go by Housed and Gray Matter. I live with Grayson. Our rooms are right next to each other. He's like a brother to me. So going to be really excited to play with him. And Edgar is from Tri-Cities, but he's definitely someone to watch in 2020. He's been really coming up as a producer. He released an EP with us towards the end of last year, and this is going to be his Q debut. What you have essentially is three producer DJs on the support lineup who will be playing out original tracks, all of whom, well, at least they're talented. I don't know about myself. I mean, I guess I do all right, but you know, pretty awesome support lineup, and then to me, one of the best producers in the game. So that whole show and experience, like, it's going to be very memorable. I would highly advise people to hit that up.
Awesome. Well, Ty, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey.
I'm really excited to just see what 2020 and beyond brings to you and your collective family. And yeah, guys, definitely catch him out. He's all around Seattle, so
yep.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, Alan. It's been a pleasure. Always enjoy talking to you, and it's been awesome working with you as well. Yeah, really excited for everything you got lined up this year, and yeah, really excited for APOG too.
Oh yeah.
Yep, this will be round 2 for me, so really excited to let loose and have fun through this summer. So.